Welcome to Cooking with Chef Jessica. Today I'm just going to show you a quick, easy way to make homemade pasta at home. It's going to be whole wheat pasta too, so it's a lot healthier than the stuff you buy out of the bag. You might wonder why we're making homemade pasta today. Well, it takes about 10 minutes to make, and it takes about 10 minutes to boil pasta, so for health reasons, make your own pasta and it's not that hard. I'm going to take whole wheat flour and white flour, and I'm going to make a little mound of both of them and mix them up. Just like that with my fingers. Now, traditionally, a pasta only has egg in it. I'm gonna add egg and olive oil, and if you want, you can add water too. You can also add an extra egg yolk for color into the pasta. There's a little trick that I want to show you though. If you ever drop an eggshell inside your egg, just like that, you can just grab another eggshell and dip it in there and it'll pull it right out. The membranes on the outside or the inside of the egg are attracted to each other and they're kind of magnetic like that. So I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil right in here and I'm going to give it a good mix. Just like that. Now, I'm going to take my flour and make almost like a mound or a volcano, because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to dig a hole. So you can take your fingers and dig a hole right through the middle so you can see the bottom of the cutting board. And now I'm going to take my egg and my fork, and I'm not going to add all of it because not all of it's going to fit at once. I'm just going to add half of it. And I'm going to take my fork and I'm going to start mixing. Just like that. It might spill over, you might have a little explosion here and there. Don't worry about it. Just pick it right back up and just start mixing again. I'm just looking for the dough to be able to be picked up with the fork. It doesn't need to be solid rock hard, and so I don't want too much flour. I actually want as little flour as possible. Now this slimy texture is what you're looking for. So once it gets to this slimy kind of gooey mass, you're just gonna take it, pick it up with your fingers, and set it aside, just like that. Now I'm gonna take the leftover flour that I have, and it's a lot, and I'm gonna push it aside. And now I've got a clean area to work with, and I'm gonna start right here. So there's my mass. I'm gonna start tapping it a little because it's really wet. So I'm gonna take a little bit of flour and I'm gonna just sprinkle it right on top. Now, there is an actual way of folding your dough so that it tends to turn out a little bit more tender than usual. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pick it up from one end and fold it over. And it's kind of like folding pages of a book. So you're gonna fold it over one side, then the other side. Then you're gonna rotate it. And then you're gonna fold over once, and you're gonna fold over twice. And you're gonna notice that it's gonna be a little wet. And so every time it gets a little more wet, you're just gonna add a little bit more flour, and you're gonna continue doing this until you have a ball of dough that is kneadable. In other words, it's actually all whole and it's like a big piece of dough. And now I got my ball of dough. And so now this dough is gonna get set aside and it's gonna rest while you boil your water. So this is when you turn on your water, and by the time your water started boiling, you'll have rolled out your dough and put it in there too, and it'll only take about 2 minutes to cook. And so you'll get fresh pasta in about 10 minutes altogether. Now while the water boils, I'm gonna roll out my dough. To roll out my dough, I'm gonna flatten it, and I'm gonna cut it in half. Because the whole thing would be too large to roll out all at once. And I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour on the bottom, and then a little bit on top of the piece of dough too. I'm also gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour on my rolling pin. Now, I'm gonna use the weight of my body and roll out the dough. Don't try to just use your arms, and don't try to use these guys. These aren't really steady. Put your hands on top of it and roll it out. You wanna roll your dough out to the point where if you put your hand behind it, you should be able to see your fingers right through it. So let's check to see if this is ready yet. You're gonna pick it up, and if you can see your fingers through it, you're ready to go. You can always make it a little bit thinner if you want to. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna fold it in half. And now I'm gonna take my sharp knife and just cut strands, depending on how thick or thin you want them. And you can take each strand down and separate them. You can hang this on a hanger, you can hang it on your rolling pin, or you can straight put it into boiling water. If you do dry it out, you can keep it for about 3 months in the freezer. If you don't dry it out and use it fresh, you can keep it in your refrigerator for about 3 days. So, say you had this pasta ready and you weren't ready to cook it and you wanted to keep it aside but you were going to cook it later, what do? And especially if you don't have anywhere to hang it. You make a nest out of it. Using your 2 fingers just like that, you're going to start and you're going to rotate it around just like that. And that way you've got it kind of in a confined area like that, but it's not sticking to each other, so it won't stick all together. And then when you're ready to boil it, just pick it right back up, just like that, and you're gonna add it to your boiling water. Again, this only takes about 2 to 3 minutes to cook. The old wives' tale about oil in the water is not true. Oil and water don't mix, and so if you added oil in there, it wouldn't make a difference. All it does is pick up a little when you take the pasta out. So instead, I'm gonna get a bowl ready with a little olive oil and put the pasta, hot pasta, right in there and toss it to prevent it from sticking. So again, this will take about 2 to 3 minutes. Once your pasta starts to float, it means it's done. So all you're gonna do is just take it out of the pot and set it aside, just like that. So now you have fresh homemade pasta ready to go with your perfect sauce that you have at home.